All right, welcome. So this is Revenue Roadmap, where we talk about sales and marketing for local entrepreneurs. So I'm Anthony Karls, president of Rocket Clicks. Today I'm with James Patterson, and I'm sorry, he's not the author. He is the marketer. Don't thank him for the books. So James is one of our paid media experts here at Rocket Clicks, and today we're going to be talking with him. So James, thanks for joining us.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
So all right, so our topic today is we are going to be in the realm of paid media, and we're going to be talking about measurement, tracking, and platforms. So James has got some words of wisdom here as it pertains to that. Like always, we are going to be connecting these topics to revenue. How do these impact driving revenue for your business? And number two, how do you know as a local entrepreneur whether or not this is being done well? So if you work with a freelancer, agency, or you got some schmo like James working on this internally, you can ask him all the right questions. So James, before we dig in there, so what's your history with marketing? How long have you been in marketing? How to get started? Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yep. So graduated college in 2017. So I've been in marketing ever since. It was kind of choosing my path. I had an attraction towards digital, just knowing that, it's probably the place to be with the way the world is changing. Had the opportunity to actually work for a really small business, and they basically had no marketing whatsoever. So they decided to go cheap, and they hired a kid straight out of college who didn't really know what he was doing to do marketing. But it forced me to learn a lot about it. And really the fortunate thing for me is I got to learn what I like to do within it and where I had interest. From there, I worked for a big corporation in Wisconsin here. I was part of the digital marketing team there. Kind of similarly, I had an opportunity to do kind of jack of all trades type work. I actually, ironically, now much more paid than anything else. But starting out, I actually was doing more SEO work than I was paid. Ended up kind of liking the paid side of the business a little bit more. So really kind of dived into that. Kind of got to a point in my career, was like, hey, I'd like to join kind of a team of experts. Realizing agency life is really the place for that. Kind of the rest is history. So I've been at Rocket Click since 2021. It's been a great ride. So yeah, that's my story.
And why'd you pick marketing as a career? What interests you about it? What's intriguing?
Yeah, so it's kind of a funny story. So my mom was in HR, and she's kind of my role model in my career. So I knew I was always attracted to business of some sort, and I didn't know where to go. And I think if you probably, surveyed a large group of marketers, they probably all would say this, or a large percentage of them was like, nah, just kind of sounded good. So that's what I went with. I went with it, obviously going with the marketing degree and going through the coursework and stuff like that. I was really attracted to the idea of like being able to understand the kind of psychographic elements to selling things and stuff like that. So really when I started getting through those college courses, it really reinforced I was in the right space. But I was this close to being a sales guy, but stayed on the light side of things here and stuck it out with marketing.
Nice. Well, like we say here, sales and marketing is the same thing. Sales is one-to-one. Marketing is one-to-many. So you still got into sales.
Yep.
All right.
It's true.
So let's jump into some of this. So paid media, we've talked in a couple episodes about kind of how to think about it, what it is overall. So today we're talking about measurement and tracking. So let's start first on the measurement side. So James, tell us a little bit about what we think about as it pertains to measurement, measuring success with our paid campaigns. How do we think about it? What are things we look for? Just give us an overview.
Yeah. So, I think measurement is probably the one area that I think most clients, especially when we're kind of kicking off with them, are most interested in or are feeling unsure if they're doing the right things in terms of, kind of really understanding what are these marketing tactics actually doing for my business. Okay. We see a lot of tendencies where businesses are really looking at the front end metrics, right? So like coming to us and like, hey, is this impression share good? Is this cost per click good? Even, a little bit further down, looking at cost per lead or conversion rates and things like that. Those are places where I think a lot of businesses start when they're looking at different channels that they're running as places for success. Where we really see things working best with clients is going much further than just those front-facing metrics, because it really doesn't tell the whole story. So like in an ideal state, these businesses are actually building a marketing waterfall, so to speak. So seeing basically from start to finish in terms of completed sale to getting actual leads in their businesses that are starting out as users, going to clicks, so on and so forth, working their way through the pipeline is kind of what's the return there. So like how much revenue am I actually generating per customer acquisition or whatever your business is, and tying that back to your actual CPL there. So opposed to taking a CPL out of just Google, which is like, it really doesn't tell you a whole lot. You can really tie it back to ROAS, make sure you're getting a healthy return on ad spend, and then getting an actual accurate CPL, especially as it pertains to those higher quality leads, really at that sales qualified level versus marketing qualified or even higher in a lot of cases.
Yeah. So let's just talk about that. Let's talk about two things. So like first, what is ROAS? So you threw that out there. What does that mean?
Yeah, so ROAS is return on ad spend. So it's really, how much money am I putting in and then getting back per, my activity on a given channel. So you can calculate that in terms of like how much, marketing spend do you have going into this channel? How much leads am I getting at the end of the day? How many customers am I getting at the end of the day? So instead of looking again at kind of the front facing side of that, is like you can get a ROAS even if you're a lead generation business. Like you can calculate what your average value per customer is and things like that, and really tie it back to that marketing spend overall to understand really what is your return on all of the marketing costs associated with running your business.
Yeah. So in that, you talked about a marketing waterfall. So let's talk a little bit about that. You mentioned lead, you mentioned MQL, you mentioned SQL, and you mentioned sales. So and then you mentioned revenue. So walk me through these things, because I think you also said users and clicks, and you said a bunch of stuff. So walk me through what we start requesting from our clients when we start engaging with them, so we can build that and we can move towards off-platform metrics and towards more of a ROAS type scenario.
Yep. So it is going to vary. Obviously, like every business we work with may have different levels to this, but generally speaking, what we're looking for is kind of a flow like this: is users, how many clicks are coming from different channels within your different tactics, how many leads are generated from that, in which place you can kind of determine what your rate is from all of those users and clicks coming into your site and then ultimately converting to a lead. Then from there, obviously that lead is going to undergo some process within your sales pipeline, talking to the call center, maybe they're talking to a provider at your health spa, whatever the case may be. What then is, the transition from just kind of an inbound lead to a marketing qualified lead. From there, they're then talking to a sales team member or maybe some expert kind of down the line in terms of your business. From there, is there some type of rate we can calculate from a marketing qualified lead to then a sales qualified lead? So meaning,
sorry to cut you off. So a marketing qualified lead is, what is that more specifically? So basically I'm a lead and then I go to a marketing qualified lead. What is that?
Yeah. So think about it this way. So if a lead was coming into your business, all they have to do, right, is either call or maybe a lot of cases to fill out a form. Well, somebody could fill out your form and it could be a college student, it could be a bot, it can be all kinds of different things. So you still need some evaluation process from just receiving the contact information or the call from the person to evaluate, this is somebody that I should actually have talk to my sales team member or whoever kind of the next layer down is in terms of your customer acquisition strategy. So it's really that first step of ensuring quality in terms of this person is looking for my service. They understand, generally what we're offering, and they can move forward to kind of the next step.
Yeah. So then a sales qualified lead is basically a marketing qualified lead that sets an appointment. For most of our clients, that's usually what it looks like. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Exactly. So working with a law firm, what that looks like is a marketing qualified lead. They would be getting into the system and handed off to an attorney to actually have a conversation with that attorney about their case and, interest in potentially moving forward and hiring that attorney ultimately.
Got it. And then from there, then did this turn into a client? Is that correct?
Exactly. Yep. So from there, sales qualified lead, obviously kind of depending on your business, maybe they don't really stay in that status very long. In some businesses like the law firm, usually people need to think about it. There's a kind of a consideration phase from there. But yeah, ultimately the goal is, your sales qualified leads, you're converting those at a pretty high rate, just knowing that they've kind of gone through all these stages throughout that journey.
Awesome. So, and then what we wanted then, so we have a sale. That sale has revenue associated with it, whether it's contracted or immediate. And that's the number you're actually trying to plug back into whatever marketing platform you're using.
Exactly. So like best case scenario is you can look back, in time, ideally it's over the course of, probably 2 years, something like that. I mean, it can be short if you don't have that data, but longer the better, to determine what is the value of the average customer that we get. And what's that average revenue? Because if you have that number, then you can work back all the way to the top and determine what's actually the value of just that first step, just a click coming in, or the first step in the inbound lead. And you can work yourself down there to really understand what's the true value at each step, and then what's the return necessary, obviously, at the end of it all, to make it all make sense from a marketing cost perspective.
So when we're thinking about, so we talked about cost per lead at the beginning, and a lot of people start there. And that's, you're probably tracking phone calls, and you're probably tracking just like web form submissions. So if I have revenue back in my platform, how does that change that number? What does that give you the power to do as a paid media expert?
Yeah, exactly. So like one of the things that we see a lot, just to like show it an example, is like, let's say on average last year you're getting like a $50 CPL, and you're not tying everything back to revenue in your business. And so here's the next year, you're expecting about a $50 CPL. And let's say things are starting to increase a little bit, right? Now things are more like a $75 CPL. For a business that's not tying this back to revenue, sirens are going off, right? They're like, oh my God, what's happening? I can't afford this. This is, that's going to compound naturally, right? Well, if you're doing everything correctly in terms of the tying it back to your kind of back end metrics in your business, you can actually, show or prove that maybe I actually can afford to spend $25 more, because maybe those leads that are coming in are actually generating higher value than, let's say, our average that we've determined through all these exercises. So that's really where it comes into play, is like, if you get so focused on those front end metrics, what you could be is like, you're saying, oh, I want to keep my CPL low because I'm trying to protect my business health and financials. You actually could be indirectly hurting your business, getting too caught up on rising CPLs, for example, unless you have those metrics and can really tie it back. Because there, of course, there is a too expensive lead that probably exists in your business. But if you're not doing all of those steps, you don't truly know what that number is to make sure that you're getting the return that's necessary.
From a learning perspective on some of these platforms, like specifically Google, I know we do this a lot for a lot of our clients in Google. What does this allow us to do from a strategy and actually leveraging the power of their AI versus like all we have is a call and a web form? Like what's the difference in performance?
Yeah, it's usually drastic. I will say that, because especially if you're using systems like Salesforce or other CRMs where you can tie back metrics from your system, a lot of times you can actually understand like which part of your campaign strategy or platform strategy is actually driving, the most number of those sales qualified leads, for example, and things like that. So what you're going from is kind of a thumb and finger in the wind type scenario on the kind of first version to like, no, we know specifically this campaign is a big driver of our revenue. And if we were to turn this off, even though we're seeing, kind of normal fluctuations or the case may be in performance front facing, we know on the back end that things are really healthy and it's critical to our operation.
Yeah. So we got one more question here. So what about how accurate are the metrics that we're seeing in the platform when we're measuring, even when we're measuring return on ad spend, whether we're measuring that or CPL or any variant they're in? What's the general accuracy that we see, and like how do we think about the in-platform metrics, and why is it so important to look at the offline?
Yeah, so basically the only metrics that you can guarantee are close to 100% accurate are going to be your offline metrics for sure. The problem is that a lot of these platforms, right, its attribution is going to vary. We have the changes in all of these privacy laws that I'm sure a lot of people are aware of at this point. Third-party cookies, Like everybody, even people that aren't in this industry are hearing these things in the news and whatnot. The more and more these laws go into place, the less and less accurate these platforms can be at really telling us if it's driving leads or the performance that kind of we're expecting from it. It's making it more critical to really go through the exercise of creating a business waterfall so you can really understand outside of what's in that platform, like what is actually happening as we're spending money in these different channels or whatever the case may be to help our business grow, or to our detriment. Do we need to scale back? That's always fun too, right? It's like we see sometimes working with clients, it's like, well, actually we're doing really well and we need to like take the gas off the fire because we know our metrics are working so well. So unfortunately the front facing metrics especially are going to get less and less accurate kind of as we move forward. It makes really being able to tie your back end numbers to your marketing strategy overall more and more critical to really understand how these platforms are playing into your business growth and goals for the year.
Yeah. So just as like I know the rule of thumb we typically talk about here internally is it's about 60 to 70% accurate when we look at an attribution perspective. And I think you talked about it really well as it pertains to tracking, which is our next topic. So just to like cap off measurement. So why is it so important to like, if you're going to be entering paid strategy, to understand this and to invest in the connections of data for driving revenue?
Yeah, I mean, I think the biggest thing is this: is like, if you are relying on these platforms to help grow your business, if you're looking at the wrong things, you're more likely to make a mistake in terms of evaluating it. So like understanding the tracking isn't perfect is a big part of that puzzle. Is like, hey, we need to figure out how we can track this with our own data, right? You're at the end of the day, you're the business, you own the customer data, to really tie that back to understand what's working and what's not. Because if you rely so closely on what's in platform, it's like I said, you could think you have a really healthy business and actually, your spend or strategy is not working at driving a return that's profitable for you and to hit your goals this year, or vice versa. You could be putting caps on things and potentially kind of shooting yourself in the foot because you're looking at these front facing metrics, or, I don't think we're getting enough leads from Google specifically, but what really could be happening is that maybe Google's not getting credit for everything that it's driving. It's always fun doing experiments and stuff with businesses. Bing strikes out as an example where, front-facing metrics, we were seeing things weren't super strong. So one day someone just said, hey, why don't we just turn that thing off? And, it doesn't really do anything. Well, because we had good access to the back-end numbers, as soon as we turned that off, all of a sudden we saw something weird. We just saw our CPL continue to increase across our whole marketing waterfall. It's like, what's going on here? All of a sudden we're paying more for leads than ever. And we just took out a bunch of spend. We paused a whole channel. Well, it turned out that, it all goes back to this. The tracking and attribution is just not all that great. If you're looking at just the front facing metrics, you're going to make decisions like this because you don't truly know if it's playing a factor in achieving your goals. And sure enough, we put Bing back on, and all of a sudden that CPL went right on back down to where we wanted it. So that's always a fun example to call out, because it's like, if you stay focused on the front, unless you have a really strong back end system to really measure this, like you could be causing detriment to your marketing operation. So that was definitely a fun lesson we learned.
So if I'm working with a freelancer agency or someone internally, how do I know I'm being guided correctly? Like, what should I be looking for?
Yeah, I would say a big red flag is a lot of what we just talked about in terms of like what's the data they're bringing you. Like, are they coming to your monthly meetings or whatever your cadence is, or giving you reports, and it's all just front facing metrics? Like, it's just like, hey, we drove this many leads, and it's the conversion column in Google Ads, and this is the CPL we're getting, and providing insight there. I would say that would be kind of a red flag to me, because in agencies at this point in the game, knowing all these changes to data privacy and stuff, it's like, this isn't groundbreaking that we really need to tie back marketing performance to your business and the financials and understanding values and things like that. Because if you're not doing that, then yeah, it's just finger in the air. So that would be a red flag. I would say a green flag is very much the opposite. If you're coming to a call, like I always call it out, we've been talking about ROAS. A lot of businesses think that's an e-com metric. That is definitely not an e-com metric. That is applicable to any business that exists. If you're spending money on marketing costs, you're getting some revenue from your customer acquisition. You can tie back revenue to the costs acquired to drive leads for your business. So if they're bringing things like that, despite you being a lead generation business, for example, then I would say you're probably working with a pretty good partner.
What are some of the questions they'll be asking me as the local business owner? Like what should I expect them to be asking for me? Or like they're asking me for information. I'm like, why are you asking me for that? What are the I should be considering as like a good signal that I'm being managed well?
Yes. So a couple things. So timelines, like I talked about earlier, plays a big part in this too. I would say metrics that they should be looking at is leads across your whole business. Those different categories like we talked about. So you should have some differentiation between a lead, a marketing qualified lead, and a sales qualified lead. So usually you'd want to see all three of those metrics if possible. And then of course, funded customers, or however you want to say that, completed acquisition in terms of the customers coming in. The timeline piece to this is huge though too. So like if they're like, hey, we want last month's only, I think there's a better version of that for sure. We probably want to be looking at things like up to 2 years, maybe even further, to really see what the pattern is. Like where are you guys at for a business? That's going to help the agency really plug in and determine like, hey, what do we need to do with our strategy to either stop this, maybe negative pattern, or on the opposite side, not play a negative role in a very positive pattern, for example. So I'd really think it'd be those. And then of course, revenue coming in from those levels. From there, generally they can calculate the different, metrics that they would need. So like a lead to marketing qualified lead rate, to sales qualified lead rate, value of each of those different lead statuses and things like that.
Awesome. This has been great. Appreciate it, James.
Yeah, it's been fun. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thank you for this. And then we'll continue picking up next time.
Awesome. Looking forward to it.
Thanks.